Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Quiet Life. Gerald Spence woke at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before his alarm. Old habits died hard. 12 years in the Marines had rewired his circadian rhythm permanently. He lay in the darkness of his small apartment, listening to the pre-dawn silence of Sacramento. No explosions, no gunfire, no screaming. Just the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic on I-80. He rolled out of bed and dropped for 50 push-ups, then 50 more. At 42, his body still moved like a weapon, lean, efficient, scarred in places that told stories he'd never share at dinner parties. Not that he attended dinner parties. The divorce had been finalized 18 months ago. Lynn Benson, she'd gone back to her maiden name, had taken the house in Roseville, the furniture, and most of their savings. Gerald had taken his duffel bag, his Jeep, and weakened custody of Tyler. He didn't fight her for more. After 3 tours in Afghanistan and 2 in Iraq, he learned that some battles weren't worth the ammunition. What he hadn't expected was how quickly Lynn would remarry. 6 months after the ink dried on their divorce papers, she'd married Clifton Hahn, a real estate developer with perfect teeth and a BMW. Tyler had called him that first weekend, voice small and confused. "Dad, Mom's new husband wants me to call him sir. Is that normal?" Gerald had gripped the phone tighter. "You call him whatever you're comfortable with, Ty. You only have one dad." Now, as Gerald showered and dressed in his work uniform, jeans, steel-toed boots, and a flannel shirt, he thought about the call he'd received from Tyler's school counselor last week. His son's grades were slipping. He'd been getting into fights. The counselor, a well-meaning woman named Lori Cox, had been gentle but direct. "Tyler's going through something. He won't talk to me, but he might talk to you." Gerald worked as a foreman at a construction company, rebuilding old infrastructure across Northern California. It was honest work, physical work, the kind that let him think without overthinking. His boss, a gruff Vietnam vet named Gene Grady, didn't ask questions about Gerald's past. He just appreciated that Gerald showed up on time and knew how to lead men. "You got that dead look in your eyes," Grady had told him once. "Seen it before. You do your job. I don't pry." "Deal. Deal." Gerald grabbed his keys and headed out into the cool October morning. Tyler would be with him this weekend, and they'd planned a camping trip to Lake Tahoe. Just the two of them like old times. Maybe he could get his son to open up, figure out what was happening in that house with the perfect teeth and the BMW. He didn't know that he had less than 72 hours before everything would change. Chapter 2. The Stepdad. Clifton Hahn had built his fortune on other people's misery. Not directly. He was too smart for that. He bought distressed properties, flipped them, and sold them at triple the price. Foreclosures, bankruptcies, deaths. Each tragedy was an opportunity. He learned early that showing empathy was expensive and that people respected money more than character. Lynn had been easy, pretty vulnerable after her divorce from that jarhead, desperate for stability. Clifton had provided it. The big house, the nice cars, the country club membership. In return, he got a trophy wife and her teenage son, Tyler. The boy was a problem. Tyler reminded Clifton too much of Gerald. The same stubborn set to his jaw, the same way of looking at people like he could see through their bullshit. Worse, Tyler was observant. Too observant. 3 weeks ago, Tyler had been homesick from school when Clifton had a meeting in his home office. The kid had walked past at the wrong moment, seen Carl Jennings and Arturo Dickerson sitting in the leather chairs. 2 men with prison tattoos and dead eyes discussing product shipments and distribution networks. Clifton had closed the door quickly, but he'd seen Tyler's face. The kid was 15, not stupid. He'd connected dots that could put Clifton away for 20 years. The real estate development was legitimate, but it was also a front. Clifton had expanded into pharmaceutical distribution, the illegal kind. OxyContin, fentanyl, cocaine. Northern California was hungry, and Clifton was the supplier. He partnered with Carl Jennings, who had connections with Mexican cartels, and Arturo Dickerson, who'd done 2 stretches in San Quentin and knew how to move product without attracting attention. It was a lucrative business. It was also a life sentence if exposed. Lynn suspected nothing. She was too busy with her yoga classes and wine tastings. But Tyler was a liability. And worse, Tyler talked to his father every week. Clifton sat in his home office, swirling 20-year-old scotch, and made a decision. The kid couldn't go. Lynn would never forgive him, and a missing teenager would bring too much heat. But Gerald, the ex-husband, the jarhead who barely made 40 grand a year and lived in a shitty apartment, an accidental death, a robbery gone wrong. Nobody would look too hard at a construction worker killed in a bad neighborhood. He picked up his phone and called Carl Jennings. "I've got a job for you," Clifton said. "2 in the skull, make it clean. I'll pay $50,000. Carl's laugh was low and mean. "Ex-Marine? Easy target. Who's the mark?" "Gerald Spence, Tyler's biological father." There was a pause. "The kid's dad?" "That's cold, Cliff. That's business. Can you handle it?" "For $50K. I'll do it tonight." Chapter 3. The Call. The phone rang at 3:17 a.m. Gerald was already awake. Nightmares again, the kind where he was back in Kandahar, holding the pieces of Corporal Danny right while the kid bled out in his arms. He grabbed the phone on the first ring. "Dad." Tyler's voice was a whisper, tight with fear. "Dad, you there?" Gerald sat up instantly, every sense alert. "I'm here, Ty. What's wrong?" "Stepdad's friends are here. They're in the garage. I heard them loading guns." Tyler's breath came in short gasps. "Dad, I heard your name." One of them said, "Ex-Marine? Easy target. 2 in his skull and job done." Gerald's mind shifted into combat mode. Clear, cold, efficient. "Tyler, listen to me carefully. Are you safe right now?" "I'm in my room. They don't know I'm awake." "Good. Go back to bed. Lock your door. Don't come out until morning. This is important. Act like you don't know anything." "Can you do that?" "Dad, they're going to kill you." "No, they're not. I promise you. Go to bed, Ty. Trust me." "Okay." Tyler's voice was steadier now. "Be careful, Dad." "Always am." Gerald ended the call and sat in the darkness, his mind racing through tactical assessments. Clifton had hired professionals, probably ex-cons, definitely armed. They'd be coming soon, expecting an easy kill. They'd scout his apartment first, check for cameras, plan their entry. He had maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour. He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Gerald scrolled through his contacts and called Patrick Castillo. The phone rang 4 times before a groggy voice answered. "This better be good, Spence." "Patrick, I need the favor I'm owed. Tonight. Now." Patrick was awake instantly. "What do you need?" 2, maybe 3 hostiles incoming to my location. Armed, trained. I need backup, and I need it quiet." "Jesus. You pissed someone off." "Ex-wife's new husband sent hitmen. My kid gave me advance warning." There was a pause. Then Patrick's voice turned hard. "Marty and Aaron are in town. I'll have them there in 20 minutes. What's the play?" "I'm setting a trap. They're expecting an easy kill. Let's give them a surprise party instead." "Hua. Send me your address." Gerald made 3 more calls. Marty Sherman, who'd saved his life in Fallujah. Aaron West, who'd lost 3 fingers to an IED and still shot better than most men with 10. Jeffrey, who worked private security and owed Gerald for keeping his ass alive during a contractor gig in Baghdad. Within 25 minutes, 4 men arrived at Gerald's apartment building. They moved like ghosts, quiet, efficient, deadly. Gerald met them in the parking garage. "Gentlemen," Gerald said, "thanks for coming." Patrick Castillo, tall and scarred with close-cropped hair, nodded. "Citret?" Gerald briefed them quickly. 2 or 3 contractors hired by my ex-wife's new husband. They're coming to kill me, make it look like a robbery. I want them alive. I want answers. And I want to know why Cliff and Hahn wants me dead badly enough to hire killers. Marty Sherman, built like a tank with a gray beard, cracked his knuckles. So he goes to him, grab M, and make him talk. Like old times. Like old times, Gerald confirmed. "Aaron, you're Overwatch. Rooftop across the street. Marty and Patrick, you're with me inside. Jeffrey, you're blocking the exit routes. They come in. They don't leave unless we let them." They moved into position with military precision. Gerald went back to his apartment and made it look lived in. Lights on in the bedroom. TV playing softly. He set up his phone to record, positioned cameras from his construction site security kit, and waited. At 4:03 a.m., his motion sensors pinged. Two vehicles, a black Escalade and a gray sedan, parked 3 blocks away. From men emerged. Gerald watched them on his tablet, his expression calm. Carl Jennings was easy to spot. 6'4", prison tattoos covering his arms, carrying a Glock in a shoulder holster. Arturo Dickerson was shorter, wiry, with cold eyes and a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. The other two were muscle, probably ex-cons Carl had picked up from his usual crew. They approached the building, checking sightlines, looking for cameras. One of them picked the lock on the main entrance. Decent technique, but sloppy. They were confident. Overconfident. Gerald's phone buzzed. "Patrick, in position. On your signal." The 4 men reached Gerald's floor. Carl gestured, and 2 of them flanked the door while Carl and Arturo stood ready, weapons drawn. Carl tried the door. Locked. He nodded to Arturo, who pulled out a lockpick set. Gerald waited until the lock clicked open, until the door swung inward, until Carl Jennings stepped across the threshold with his gun raised. Then he flipped on every light in the apartment. Carl froze, because instead of finding Gerald Spence asleep in bed, he found himself staring down the barrels of 4 AR-15s held by 4 very awake, very dangerous men. "Surprise," Gerald said calmly. "Drop the weapons." Now, Chapter 4, The Trap Springs. Carl Jennings had been in tight situations before, prison fights, cartel confrontations, a bullet through his shoulder in Stockton that should have killed him. But standing in Gerald Spence's apartment, with 4 assault rifles pointed at his face while his backup scattered like roaches, activated something primal in his brain. Pure, undiluted fear. "I said drop them," Gerald repeated. His voice was steady, conversational even, but his eyes were ice. "You've got 3 seconds before my friends start making permanent decisions." Carl's gun clattered to the floor. Arturo Dickerson, behind him, did the same. The 2 muscle guys in the hallway tried to run. Aaron West's voice crackled through the radio. "Runners neutralized. Non-lethal. They're zip-tied on the stairs." Patrick Castillo moved forward, keeping his rifle trained on Carl, while Marty Sherman swept the weapons away and began pat-downs. He found 2 more guns, 3 knives, a garrote, and enough ammunition to start a small war. "Professional job," Marty commented. "These boys came prepared." Gerald stepped closer to Carl, studying him the way a biologist studies a specimen. "You're Carl Jennings. 2 stretches in San Quentin, 1 in Pelican Bay. Assault, weapons trafficking, suspected involvement in 4 homicides. You work with the Sinaloa Distribution Network." He turned to Arturo. "And you're Arturo Dickerson. Enforcer. You like knives more than guns. Up close and personal. 3 murders attributed to you, but you walked because witnesses disappeared." Arturo's scarred face twisted. "How the hell? I make it my business to know who might want me dead," Gerald interrupted. "What I don't know is why. So we're going to have a conversation. You're going to tell me everything about Clifton Hahn, and if I believe you, you might walk out of here with all your teeth." Patrick and Marty flexcuffed the 2 hitmen and forced them into chairs. Jeffrey arrived moments later, dragging the 2 muscle guys who looked significantly worse for wear. "These idiots try to fight," Jeffrey said. I explained why that was a bad idea. Gerald pulled up a chair and sat facing Carl. The room felt like an interrogation cell. Harsh light, no exits, and 4 hard men who knew exactly how to make people talk. "Let's start simple," Gerald said. "Clifton Hahn hired you to kill me." "What?" Carl tried to look tough, but Gerald could see the calculation behind his eyes. He was weighing options: stay silent and die here, or talk and maybe deal with Clifton later. 50,000, Carl finally said. Cash payment. He wanted you dead, said you were a threat to his business. "What business?" Carl hesitated. Arturo spat blood and jumped in. "Pharmaceutical distribution. The illegal kind. Clifton moves product through his real estate holdings, vacant properties, foreclosed homes, storage units. He's been building a network for 5 years. Major player in Northern California now." Gerald's jaw tightened. "And what does that have to do with me?" "Your kid," Carl said. "Tyler. He saw something he wasn't supposed to see. Clifton scared the kid talk to you." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Gerald's voice went quiet. which was somehow more terrifying than if he'd shouted. "My son? What did Tyler see?" Arturo, reading the room, spoke quickly. 3 weeks ago, Tyler walked in on a meeting. Saw me and Carl talking business with Clifton. The kid's smart. He put together. Clifton figured if Tyler told you, you'd go to the cops. Easier to eliminate you than risk exposure. So he hired you to murder me because my 15-year-old son accidentally saw you dealing drugs. Gerald stood slowly. And you took the job. Carl tried to salvage it. Look, man, it's just business. Nothing personal. We weren't going to make the kid watch or nothing. Patrick Castillo hit Carl so hard the chair tipped backward. You're going to kill a kid's father and call it just business? Wrong answer. Gerald held up a hand. Patrick stepped back, breathing hard. Here's what's going to happen, Gerald said. You're going to tell me everything about Clifton's operation. Names, locations, suppliers, distribution networks. Everything. Then you're going to help me prove it. And if you cooperate, I'll make sure the police find you alive when this is over. If you don't, he gestured to his 4 heavily armed friends. Well, we've all made people disappear before. We're very good at it. Over the next 2 hours, Carl and Arturo sang like canaries. Gerald recorded every word. Chapter 5. The Investigation. The sun was rising when Gerald finally let Patrick and the others take the 4 would-be assassins to a secure location, a storage unit Patrick owned under a fake name. They'd keep them on ice while Gerald figured out his next move. You good? Patrick asked before leaving. This is heavy shit, man. Drug trafficking, murder for hire. You should take this to the cops. And tell them what? Gerald replied. That my ex-wife's husband hired hitmen, based on the testimony of said hitmen. No physical evidence, no paper trail. Clifton's smart. He paid cash, communicated in person. By the time the cops investigated, he'd have lawyers and alibis. Tyler would be in danger, and I'd look like a bitter ex-husband making false accusations. So what's the play? Gerald's smile was sharp. I'm going to do what I do best. Hunt. After his friends left, Gerald showered, changed, and drove to Lynn's house in Roseville. It was 7:30 a.m. Tyler would be getting ready for school. Gerald parked down the street and waited. At 7:52, Tyler emerged with his backpack. He looked tired, scared. Gerald's heart clenched. He'd protected his son from a lot. War stories, nightmares, the ugly parts of his past. But now his son was caught in something that Gerald should have seen coming. Tyler walked to the bus stop. Gerald followed at a distance, making sure no one else was watching the kid. Once Tyler was safely on the school bus, Gerald drove to his construction site. Gene Grady looked up from his coffee when Gerald arrived. You look like hell. Rough night. Boss, I need to take some personal time. Week, maybe 2. Grady studied him. This trouble. The kind I'm going to fix. You need help? I've got a handle. Grady nodded. Your job's here when you get back. Try not to kill anyone. Gerald didn't promise anything. He spent the rest of the day doing what Marines do best, reconnaissance. He pulled property records on Clifton Hahn's holdings. 43 properties across Sacramento County, most of them foreclosures or distressed sales. Gerald visited 12 of them, looking for patterns. The third property, a vacant warehouse in Rancho Cordova, had fresh tire tracks and a recently changed lock. Gerald picked it open, one skill from his less-than-legal days in the service, and found exactly what he expected. Product. Enough fentanyl and OxyContin to fill a pharmacy, packaged and ready for distribution. Clean bills of lading showing the property as construction storage for Hahn Development, LLC. Gerald photographed everything with a camera he'd bought with cash that morning. No digital trail. He also pocketed a few pills as samples, careful not to disturb anything else. By evening, he documented 3 more stash houses. Clifton was running a sophisticated operation, using his legitimate business as cover. The real estate development gave him access to dozens of properties. He employed construction crews who could move product without suspicion, and his wealth provided the perfect facade. But every operation had weak points. Gerald drove to the county clerk's office just before closing. He paid for copies of all of Clifton's property transactions going back 5 years. 47 separate purchases, all within 6 months of each other. All cash deals. all from buyers who'd been in financial distress. Following the paper trail, Gerald noticed something else. Several of the properties had been purchased through a shell company called Redwood Holdings, LLC. He dug deeper. Redwood was registered in Nevada, ownership hidden behind layers of legal protection. But Gerald had friends who specialized in uncovering hidden things. He called a contact he'd made during his time in intelligence operations, a former NSA analyst named Daniel, right, who'd gone private sector. Danny, I need information on a Nevada LLC, Redwood Holdings. I need real ownership, bank accounts, anything you can find. That's illegal, you know. So is hiring hitmen to kill me? Can you do it? Give me 24 hours. Gerald's next stop was Tyler's school. He found Lori Cox, the counselor, in her office grading papers. Mr. Spence, she said, surprised. I wasn't expecting you. I need to ask you something about Tyler. Has he mentioned anything about his stepfather? Anything that concerned you? Lori hesitated. I can't discuss specific sessions, but off the record, Tyler's been anxious. He mentioned feeling unsafe at home. I encouraged him to talk to you or his mother, but he shut down. If I told you Tyler might be in danger, that his stepfather is involved in illegal activities, what would you do? Lori's expression shifted from professional concern to alarm. I'd call Child Protective Services immediately. Mr. Spence, if Tyler is in danger, I'm handling it. I just need you to watch him at school. If anyone tries to pick him up early, anyone other than Lynn or me, you call the police immediately. Can you do that? Yes, of course. Gerald left the school and drove to his apartment. He had evidence of drug trafficking, testimony from hired killers, and 24 hours before Danny got back to him with financial records. But he needed one more thing. He needed leverage that would force Clifton to confess, to expose himself completely. He needed to make Clifton panic. Chapter 6. The Pressure. Clifton Hahn's phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Unknown number. He normally wouldn't answer, but Carl Jennings hadn't reported in. The job should have been done 12 hours ago. On, he answered. Hello, Clifton. The voice was calm, measured, familiar. This is Gerald Spence. Clifton's blood turned to ice. How did you get your number? Please. How did I survive your amateur hit squad? That's the better question. I don't know what you're talking about. Carl Jennings and Arturo Dickerson. You're enforcers. They're currently zip-tied in a very uncomfortable location, and they've been remarkably talkative about your pharmaceutical business. 3 stash houses, 2 major suppliers, and a distribution network that would impress the DEA. Clifton's hands shook. You're bluffing. Am I? Warehouse in Rancho Cordova. $400,000 in product. House on what avenue? Counting room. Storage unit in Citrus Heights. Your supply cache. Should I continue? The silence stretched. Finally, Clifton spoke, his voice cold. What do you want? Face-to-face conversation. Tomorrow noon. Lake Natoma, the parking lot near the rowing club. Come alone. If I see any of your associates, if I even suspect you brought backup, everything I have goes to the Sacramento PD and the DEA simultaneously. You think you can blackmail me? I'm not blackmailing you. I'm giving you a chance to explain why you tried to kill me, why you put my son in danger, and to discuss what happens next. See you tomorrow, Clifton. Gerald hung up. He knew Clifton would come. Men like Clifton always believed they could talk their way out, negotiate, find an angle. Gerald was counting on it. The next morning, Daniel Wright called. You owe me big for this, Spence. Redwood Holdings is owned by a network of shell companies, but I traced it back. Main investor? Someone named Rodolfo Owen. He's cartel-connected, works as a middleman between Mexican suppliers and American distributors. And Clifton? Silent partner. He provides the infrastructure. Owen provides the product and protection. It's a beautiful arrangement, until someone exposes it. Thanks, Danny. I'll send you a case of that bourbon you like. Make it 2 cases. This was illegal as hell. Gerald prepared for the meeting methodically. He wore a wire, civilian-grade recording device purchased that morning. He informed Patrick where he'd be and when, with instructions to call the police if he didn't check in by 1 p.m. At 11:45, Gerald arrived at Lake Natoma. The October day was cool, the lake reflecting gray skies. Joggers and cyclists passed by, oblivious to the drama about to unfold. Clifton's BMW pulled in at 12:03. He emerged wearing an expensive suit, looking every inch the successful businessman. But Gerald could see the tension in his shoulders, the slight tremor in his hands. They met at a picnic table overlooking the water. "You've made a serious mistake," Clifton said, trying to regain control. "Coming after me. I didn't come after you. You sent killers to my home. There's a difference. You can't prove anything." Gerald pulled out his phone and played a recording. Carl Jennings' voice, clear and distinct. "Clifton Hahn paid us $50,000 cash to kill Gerald Spence. Said his kids saw too much." Clifton's face went pale. "I have 4 men willing to testify," Gerald continued. "I have photographs of your stash houses. I have financial records linking you to Rodolfo Owen. I have enough to put you away for life. But I'm a reasonable man. So here's what's going to happen." "You want money," Clifton said quickly. "I can pay. I don't want your money. I want my son safe. I want you out of his life and out of Lynn's life. You're going to quietly divorce Lynn, sign over full custody of Tyler to me, and disappear. You'll shut down your drug operation, pay off your cartel connections, and leave California." Clifton laughed, but it was desperate. "You're insane. I'll never." "Option 2, Gerald interrupted, "is that I take everything to the authorities. You go to prison. Owen's people find out you've been compromised and tie up loose ends, meaning they kill you. Either way, you lose. This way, you lose but stay alive." Clifton's jaw worked. "And if I refuse?" Gerald leaned forward. "Then I hunt you. Not as a Marine, not as Tyler's father, but as someone who's very, very good at making people disappear. You sent killers after me, Clifton. Fair game now." The threat hung in the air. Clifton had spent his life negotiating, manipulating, finding leverage. But sitting across from Gerald Spence, a man who'd survived 5 combat tours, who'd dismantled his hit squad like it was nothing, who spoke of murder with the casual tone of discussing weather, Clifton realized he'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. He'd thought Gerald was just a construction worker, a grunt, easy prey. He'd been so very wrong. "I need time," Clifton said. "You have 48 hours to start divorce proceedings. 1 week to transfer custody. 2 weeks to be gone. I'll be watching. And Clifton, if anything happens to Tyler or Lynn, if I even suspect you've retaliated, every piece of evidence goes public, and I come for you personally. We clear." Clifton nodded, defeated. Gerald stood. "Enjoy your last days in Sacramento." Chapter 7. The Unraveling. Clifton Hahn sat in his home office that night, staring at his reflection in the window. The perfect life he'd built, the house, the business, the beautiful wife, was collapsing around him like a controlled demolition. But he wasn't the type to go quietly. He called Rodolfo Owen. "We have a problem," Clifton said when Owen answered. "Gerald Spence. Ex-Marine. He's got evidence of our operation." Owen's voice was smooth, dangerous. "The same Gerald Spence you hired Carl to eliminate? The job that somehow failed. Carl and his men are missing. Spence has them. He's demanding I leave town, shut down operations. Then you eliminate him yourself. This is your mess, Clifton. I tried that. He's too well protected now. He's got military contacts, recordings, photographs. If I move against him, everything goes to the police." There was a long pause. "Then you've become a liability." The line went dead. Clifton stared at the phone, realization dawning. Owen wouldn't let him walk away. Too much money involved, too many connections. If Clifton was compromised, Owen would clean house, permanently. Panic set in. Clifton had 2 enemies now. Gerald Spence, who wanted him gone, and Rodolfo Owen, who wanted him dead. He made a decision. If he was going down, he'd take Gerald with him. That night, Clifton drove to one of his properties, a house in North Highlands that he'd bought from a foreclosure. Inside, he kept his insurance policy, 10 kilos of uncut fentanyl, unmarked and untraceable. His plan was simple. Plant the drugs in Gerald's apartment. Make an anonymous tip to the police. Gerald would be arrested, his credibility destroyed. Custody of Tyler would default to Lynn. And Clifton could use that leverage to negotiate with Owen, show he'd handled the problem. It was desperate, but desperate was all he had left. Chapter 8. The Final Play. Gerald knew Clifton would try something. Men like Clifton didn't accept defeat, they escalated. So Gerald had prepared. He'd moved out of his apartment that afternoon, renting a motel room under a fake name. He'd also installed motion-activated cameras in his apartment, all streaming to his phone. At 2:37 a.m., the cameras lit up. Clifton Hahn, wearing dark clothes and gloves, picked the lock and entered Gerald's apartment. He carried a large duffel bag. Gerald watched on his phone as Clifton moved through the rooms, planting drugs in closets, drawers, under the bed. When Clifton finished, he left quickly and drove away. Gerald waited exactly 10 minutes, then made a call. Not to the police. To Lynn. Lynn, it's Gerald. I know it's late, but you need to listen. Tyler's in danger. Clifton's not who you think he is. What are you talking about? Lynn sounded groggy, confused. He's a drug dealer. Major distribution network. He hired hitmen to kill me because Tyler saw something he shouldn't have. And right now, Clifton just planted drugs in my apartment to frame me. That's insane, Gerald. You're trying to turn me against. Check his office. Bottom drawer of his desk, there's a burner phone. Check his call logs. And check the garage. That's where he stores product before distribution. I'm not going to spy on my husband based on your paranoid. Then ask Tyler. Ask him about the men he saw in Clifton's office 3 weeks ago. Ask him why he's scared to come home. There was a long silence. Tyler said something about strange men, but he wouldn't elaborate because Clifton threatened him. Lynn, I know we didn't end well. I know you blame me for choosing the military over our marriage. And you're right, I made mistakes. But I've never lied to you. Not once. I'm telling you the truth now. Clifton is dangerous. Check his office. Please. The line went quiet. Then, I'll call you back. 20 minutes later, Gerald's phone rang. Lynn was crying. Oh God, Gerald, there's so much money. Cash. And the phone, the messages, he was texting about shipments and payments. She broke down. What do I do? Pack a bag. Take Tyler. Go to your sister's house in Stockton right now. Don't tell Clifton where you're going. I'm calling the police, but I need you and Tyler safe first. Okay, I'm getting Tyler now. Lynn, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you got pulled into this. Just keep our son safe. Always. Gerald waited until he got confirmation from Lynn that she and Tyler were on the road. Then he called Detective Lester Morse, Sacramento PD, a cop he'd worked with on a construction site robbery case 2 years prior. Morse, it's Gerald Spence. I've got something big. Drug trafficking, murder for hire, planted evidence. I need you to come to my apartment. Don't send uniforms. Don't make noise. Just you and your most trusted partner. Morse, to his credit, didn't ask questions. 30 minutes. Gerald sent him the camera footage of Clifton planting the drugs. He sent him the recordings from Carl and Arturo. He sent him the photographs of the stash houses. Morse arrived with Detective Casey Shaw, a tough woman with 20 years on the force. They watched the evidence in Gerald's motel room. Holy shit, Shaw breathed. This is massive. On development? I know that company. They donated to the mayor's campaign. Which is why he thought he was untouchable, Gerald said. Can you make a case? Morse nodded slowly. With this? Yeah. We'll need to verify the stash houses, bring in narcotics, coordinate with the DEA. But Spence, you're handing us a gift-wrapped federal case. What about the hitmen? Carl Jennings and Arturo Dickerson. Where are they? Gerald gave them Patrick's storage unit address. They're alive and unharmed. Mostly. Shaw raised an eyebrow. How'd you? Don't ask questions you don't want answered, Detective. Morse grinned. Marines. Always overachieving. They move fast. Search warrants were obtained by dawn. At 6:47 a.m., a coordinated raid hit 12 of Clifton's properties simultaneously. They found everything. Drugs, money, ledgers, burner phones. Clifton Hahn was arrested at his home at 7:15 a.m. He didn't go quietly, screaming about false accusations and unlawful search. But the evidence was overwhelming. By noon, Rodolfo Owen was also in custody, taken down in a DEA operation that had been building for months. Clifton's arrest had given them the final piece they needed. Chapter 9, Aftermath. 3 weeks later, Gerald sat in a courtroom watching Clifton Hahn's arraignment. The charges were extensive: drug trafficking, conspiracy, solicitation of murder, evidence tampering. The DA was seeking life without parole. Clifton looked smaller now, diminished in an orange jumpsuit, his perfect teeth hidden behind a grimace of fury and defeat. When he saw Gerald in the gallery, his eyes filled with hate. Gerald just stared back unmoved. Tyler sat beside him, subdued but safer. Lynn was on the other side, still processing everything. The divorce proceedings were already underway, this time initiated by Lynn with full support from Gerald. She'd get the house, the assets. Gerald didn't care about any of that. He had his son back. That was all that mattered. After the hearing, they walked out into the November sunshine. Tyler had been quiet for days, working through everything with a therapist Lori Cox had recommended. "Dad," Tyler said finally, "those men were really going to kill you." "Yeah, Ty, they were. And you stopped them. I had help. Good men who had my back." Tyler was quiet for a moment. "Mr. Castillo came by the house yesterday. He said you saved his life in Fallujah. Patrick saved mine first. That's how it works. He said you're the toughest person he's ever known. Said you never give up, never quit, never leave anyone behind." Gerald put his hand on his son's shoulder. "I'll never leave you behind, Tyler. Never. No matter what." Tyler hugged him hard. "I know, Dad." Lynn approached, looking tired but relieved. "Thank you," she said to Gerald. "I should have listened sooner. I should have seen. You couldn't have known. Clifton was good at hiding who he was. Still, you saved us. Both of us." She paused. "Tyler wants to live with you full-time. And honestly, after everything, I think that's best. I need to rebuild my life, figure out who I am without making the same mistakes." Gerald looked at his ex-wife, really looked at her, and saw the woman he'd married 15 years ago before deployments and distance had torn them apart. "You're stronger than you think, Lynn. You proved that by getting Tyler out when it mattered." She smiled sadly. "Maybe we'll both figure it out." They said their goodbyes, and Gerald drove Tyler back to his apartment. Tomorrow, they'd start looking for a bigger place, somewhere with space for Tyler's things, room for him to grow. That evening, Patrick, Marty, Aaron, and Jeffrey came over. Gerald grilled burgers while his Marine brothers told Tyler stories. The funny ones, the ones that made them heroes instead of showing the cost. Tyler laughed for the first time in weeks. Later, after everyone left, Gerald and Tyler sat on the small balcony watching the Sacramento skyline light up. "Dad," Tyler said, "the counselor asked me to write about someone I admire. Someone I want to be like when I grow up." "Yeah? Who'd you pick?" Tyler looked at his father. "You. I wrote about you." Gerald felt something break open in his chest, something that had been locked tight since the divorce, since the nightmares, since all the years of thinking he'd failed at the most important job of his life. "I'm not a hero, Ty." "Yeah, you are. Maybe not the kind with medals or statues. But you protected Mom and me. You stopped bad guys. You kept your promises." Tyler paused. "You're my hero, Dad." Gerald pulled his son close. "Then I'll keep being the man you think I am." "Deal. Deal." They sat together as the stars came out, father and son, survivors both. The hitmen were in jail. Clifton Hahn would spend his life in prison. The danger was over. But more than that, something had been rebuilt. Trust, safety, the certainty that no matter what came next, they'd face it together. Gerald Spence had been a Marine, a soldier, a warrior. But his greatest battle had always been the one to be a good father. And finally, he'd won. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.